Cannibals, Cyclopes, Giants, Sea Monsters, and Questionable Geography. The 16th century German cartographer Sebastian Münster created some of the most memorable and influential maps of all time. His work is crucial to the history of cartography and continues to shape mapmaking centuries later. Let's go to raremaps.com to find our first maps. It's an online antique map shop, but it is also essentially an online map library. Münster created hundreds of maps, varying from city, country, continent, globe, and even some fantasy maps. There are too many to cover them all in one video, so we'll focus on what I think best highlights the beliefs of the 16th century world and Münster's unique contributions to the field of cartography. Here we have Geographia Universalis. First published in 1540, it's the first of two atlases he published in his lifetime. This atlas is an updated edition of Ptolemy's Geographia, with 21 modern maps added. Let's take a closer look. The first map we'll look at is a world map. The shapes of 5 of the 7 continents are accurate enough to be easily recognizable to a 21st century viewer, although there are some inaccuracies and interesting features. For instance, the East Indies are depicted farther west than they actually are. Java looks to have been confused with Sri Lanka, while Sumatra's been pushed to the other side of India. Australia is missing from the map as Europeans had yet to make contact and thoroughly explore the continent. It wasn't until the early 17th century that Dutch explorers began charting parts of the coastline. Over the next 200 years, from the 17th to the 18th centuries, various European explorers gradually mapped and recognized the extent of Australia. Antarctica is also absent from the map, as it wouldn't be discovered for a few more centuries. The map does not include the Terra Australis theory, a mythical landmass dating back to antiquity, though it does feature a small unlabeled landmass south of the Straits of Magellan, which were discovered less than 2 decades before this map was produced. South America appears somewhat distorted, and North America is shown with a giant inland sea extending down into the continent. Let's take a closer look at Münster's Americas map and examine the 2 continents. You can probably identify some recognizable features. At first glance, it looks as if this sea could be a distorted Hudson Bay. However, this is something different. This map reflects the exploration of Giovanni da Verrazzano, an Italian explorer sent in 1523 by Francis King to explore the eastern coast of what is now the United States and Canada, with the primary goal of finding a sea route to the Pacific Ocean. That spring, Verrazzano believed he found what he was looking for. In a letter to Francis I, Verrazzano wrote, "We found there an isthmus 1 mile wide and about 200 miles long, in which we could see the eastern sea from the ship, halfway between west and north. This is doubtless the one which goes around the tip of India, China, and Cathay." However, Verrazzano was unable to find an inlet to sail through and confirm what he believed he was looking at. He and his crew were actually looking at Pamlico Sound in the modern-day U.S. state of North Carolina, not the Pacific Ocean. Anyone who has been to the Outer Banks and looked west can understand the confusion. Let's take a look at a few features in South America. Here we see the word cannibali, or cannibals, above an illustration depicting a human head and an arm hanging from branches, as if they were about to be cooked. This is a simplified version of an image on an earlier Munster world map, published in 1532. According to Amerigo Vespucci's letters, he encountered cannibalistic tribes in what is now modern-day Brazil. However, there has been considerable debate over the authenticity of these letters, with some scholars suggesting they may have been embellished or even fabricated. Despite this, the letters influenced European perceptions of the New World. Those whom they bring home captives from the war they preserve, not to spare their lives, but that they may be slain for food, for they eat one another. The victors the vanquished, and among other kinds of meat, human flesh is a common article of diet with them. And I saw salted human flesh suspended from beams between the houses, just as with us it is custom to hang bacon and pork. Verrazzano embarked on several more voyages after the one where he believed he had sighted the Pacific Ocean. One of these voyages took him to South America, and his third and final journey led him to Florida and the Caribbean. Verrazzano met his demise on his third voyage, but the circumstances of his death are subject to conflicting accounts. According to one version, he and a few of his men were attacked, killed, and eaten by natives. Just to the south, we see the words Regio Gigantum, the region of giants. Multiple explorers of the era claim to have spotted them in the region. The first was Ferdinand Magellan, when he was sailing through the strait that would be named for him in 1520. He captured 2 giants to take back to Europe, but they became ill and died on the journey home, and they were apparently buried at sea. Magellan's assistant documented their encounter. One day we saw a naked man of giant stature on the shore of the port dancing, singing, and throwing dust on his head. He was so tall that we reached only to his waist. Believing them to be giants, Magellan named the indigenous people he encountered Patagons. In Spanish, pata typically refers to an animal leg or paw, and can informally refer to a human leg or foot. Patagonia is derived from this term, and can be interpreted as land of the big-footed people. This map, including its various states over the following decades, was the most widely circulated and well-known map of the Americas until Abraham Ortelius published his famous 1570 atlas. Because this map was so widespread, it solidified the use of the name America, first used by Martin Waldseemüller, a fellow German cartographer. Now let's go across the Atlantic and take a look at Münster's map of Africa. This is the first map of the entire navigable African continent, meaning it's the first map to show the entire continent while also not connected to Terra Australis, as Bartholomew Diaz had rounded its southern tip a half-century prior to this map's making. In southern Africa, we have an elephant. In the tropical regions, birds are depicted, though the species isn't clear. Further north in what is today Cameroon and Nigeria, there is a one-eyed man to represent the fabled tribe of the Monokuli. This cyclops does not have a single known identifiable source, but rather likely emerged from a collection of ancient myths, travelers' tales, and classical ancient Greek and Roman texts. Influenced by the work of Ptolemy, Münster incorporated cities from Ptolemy's time, though they had long been abandoned by the time of this map's publishing. The map of course includes the Nile River, but its sources include 2 unnamed lakes taken from Ptolemy. Ptolemy referenced accounts from Diogenes, a Greek merchant, along with other explorers who ventured deep inland from the East African coast. These travelers reported discovering 2 expansive lakes, replenished by the melting snow of towering mountains to the south. These mountains became known as the Mountains of the Moon. Numerous African kingdoms, including the mythical empire of Prester John, are documented. Prester John, a Christian monarch believed to be a descendant of one of the Magi who visited Jesus after his birth, reportedly ruled a vast empire from the 12th to the 17th centuries. A forged letter from 1165 that circulated in Europe described his realm as extraordinarily wealthy and free of snakes, poisonous plants, and noisy frogs, likening it to a paradise on earth. The empire was said to contain the Tower of Babel and the Fountain of Youth. In the letter, Prester John professed to be a devout Christian, vowing to protect his empire's Christians and combat the enemies of Christianity. These maps were also included in Münster's later atlas, though with some minor changes. First published in 1544, Cosmographia was originally published alongside Geographia Universalis. But Cosmographia became one of the most popular works of the 16th century. Cosmographia saw 35 editions in multiple states and languages. Its last edition was published in 1628, well after Münster's death from the plague in 1552. This broader encyclopedic work covered geography, astronomy, natural history, and various other fields. It featured many more maps and illustrations, including detailed maps of countries and cities. One notable addition was Münster's map of sea wonders and strange animals. Some of these creatures resemble real animals, while others are purely fictional, though many people at the time believed they were real. This imaginative map, inspired by Olaus Magnus's 1539 Carta Marina, showcases mythical creatures both on land and at sea. On land, there is an array of tusked, furred, and horned animals. The illustrations also include a sleigh rider with a caribou and another man fighting a snake. The sea creatures are even more bizarre, featuring sea serpents attacking ships, massive lobsters, and a duck-birthing tree. Drawing from the Carta Marina, this map influenced many later maps, including Abraham Mortelius's 1587 map of Iceland. In later editions of the atlas, Europe is turned into a queen. The queen's head and crown make up the Iberian Peninsula. Her arms are represented by Italy and Denmark, and her dress encompasses the countries from France to Bulgaria. Great Britain and Ireland are depicted smaller relative to their actual size, possibly hinting at a political statement. Beyond his achievements in cartography, Münster had a distinguished career in other fields. He joined the Franciscan order as a young man and became a priest. He then studied at the University of Tübingen and graduated in 1518. Münster then joined the University of Basel, where he served as a professor of Hebrew. He authored several grammar books and a Hebrew Bible with Latin translations and annotations. Additionally, he wrote a textbook on basic mathematical principles and concepts. Despite these varied contributions, Münster is still most celebrated for his influential maps. Sebastian Münster's maps have left a lasting legacy, with their distinctive style potentially influencing many modern fantasy maps and worlds. For example, though there is no direct evidence linking Münster's maps to the design of the game Elden Ring, fans have noticed some similarities and possible references to Münster's work in the game. Sebastian Münster's maps will likely only continue to captivate and inspire, showcasing the timeless impact of his unique contributions to art and cartography. Before I end this video, thank you RareMaps.com for supporting this video. RareMaps.com is an online antique map shop with over 10,000 antique maps in their inventory, including almost every map you saw in this video. This includes complete original copies of Cosmographia and Geographia Universalis, as well as their maps sold separately. The website's detailed descriptions and high-definition images make many of these old map videos possible, so it's also a great place to browse and learn more about old maps. Again, that's RareMaps.com. And that's all for this video. If you enjoyed it, please hit the like button and subscribe if you haven't already. Thank you all for watching.